The standard is very low. So you get in and that immigration person goes, okay, well, welcome to America. Here's your hearing date. See you in 6 years. 5 years into your 6 years, you haven't come back to your hearing yet because you haven't met your date yet. And I stop you at busted taillight on the interstate. Is that person required to have that paperwork on them 5 years later? Are they here legally or are they here illegally? What is their status? My name is Mike Gleason. I'm the 36th elected Sheriff of Williamson County, Texas. I was a 2-year-old Texas transplant. My father was an executive for IBM, and he was sent here to build the original IBM plant in Austin, Texas, and so been in the Central Texas area my entire life. Had always wanted to be a police officer, and the metropolitan area of Austin just wasn't hiring my type at the time, and it was very difficult because they were going through a very, challenging position with being all white single males, and so they were looking elsewhere. And so a friend of mine suggested going to Williamson County, which is, Williamson County has a large portion of the city of Austin in it. And I'd never really thought about it, but I was, I was in school and ready to go. And so I came up here and put my application in, and the rest is history. Been here for since 1993. To be quite honest with you, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And in the 8th grade, I took what was called kind of a business class to kind of teach you the ways of the world and what was out there for people in my predicament. And 2 Austin police officers came in and taught a class, hey, this is what we do, and I was hooked. And I was fortunate enough to have a brother-in-law, my sister's husband, who was an Austin police officer. So we had ride-out programs in high school, like most high schools have criminal justice programs. And so rather than going out on Friday and Saturday night with all my friends, I would go out ride out with him, and I pretty much became a staple of his shift. The sergeant would be like, hey, is your brother-in-law coming out again? Yeah, he'll be here. And I knew everybody and kind of became part of the family. And I was given a whole lot more latitude normally. Stay in the car, keep your seatbelt on, don't talk to anybody, keep the doors locked. Well, as I got to know everybody, they were like, yeah, come on inside with us, And it's almost fair to say that when I started in this line of work, I knew a whole lot more than some of the people that were training me. Because I had so many thousands of hours of riding out and practical, not the application of law, but the practical law, The academy basically teaches you on how to get dressed for your first day at work. Then the job starts. Then you jump into reality and your FTO. Well, they didn't teach us this scenario, because it's real and it's in your face and you have to adapt. And so when I started as a corrections officer here, which I think is beneficial to everybody that goes into law enforcement, because the corrections platform teaches you to learn when you're being scammed, when someone's lying to you, someone's trying to do. These guys and girls are trying to get something over on you all the time. They have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that's all they want to do. So you get a very good sense of character, honesty, dishonesty, and things like that. So it's very good character building. So the sheriff's office now, we probably take 80% of our employees out of the jail, out of the corrections platform before they go to the street, because they have that life experience. We cover 1,124 square miles. We are a full service agency. We're considered a large agency. Civilians included, all sworn, and volunteers were almost 600 personnel. I have a $60 to $62 million budget, and about 25 million of that is corrections only, because we run basically a hospital back there. We run a city back there, so it's the bulk of our budget, and of course employee salaries. We are the largest employer of Williamson County. It's funny because we are Central Texas, and the word central means we're right in the middle of it. But I have IH-35, an interstate highway that runs from the border directly through my county from the southern tip to the northern tip. And there's a thing called the Golden Triangle. That's San Antonio to Dallas to Houston, and I'm smack in the middle of it. 70% of all contraband that comes into the United States goes through the Golden Triangle. So it might be a transient population. It was not intended for my jurisdiction. It's only intended to pass through my jurisdiction. The invention or the adaptation of license plate readers and technology that we have and the interdiction units that I run on the interstate, we're knocking down those roads, those loads all day long. The old saying goes, drugs go north and guns and money go south. So depending on what side of the interstate you're working that day might dictate what load you get. But the fentanyl poisoning is a scourge to our community now. And if you belong to a community and they tell you you don't have a problem, someone's lying to you, because we do. And it's my job to stop that through the interstate regardless of how it comes through, whether it was intended for my community or not. And I feel for a lot of the true border communities, because those district attorneys and those sheriffs and those police departments legitimately were not intended location for that product. It comes through the border, and most of those guys we were speaking about, our good friend Eddie Guerra, you go to McAllen, that's one of those beautiful, safest communities you could ever be in, and he's a border town, but unless you go there, you automatically assume, oh, horrible place, border town, don't want to go there. And it couldn't be any more opposite. Those people want more to get out of his community and get gone, because they want to be in Houston and New York and Pennsylvania and Chicago. And so they may have some politicians, not speaking for them, but they may have a local prosecutor, a district attorney, or a county attorney going, why am I spending all of my budget on prosecuting people that were never intended for my community? I almost want to go on through, we'll turn a blind eye so I can work on these problems in my community. And so that's an extra burden, and it comes back to the federal government. Immigration is a federal problem, and that needs to be handled at the budget, not waiting on the local authorities to spend all the local taxpayer dollars on a problem that was never intended them due to geography. Well, the first question is how do we do it? I don't know, when we were showing Ronnie earlier my badge collection, and I said, hey, this is when I worked the hardest, because it was my deputy badge and it's all worn out and some of the enamels kicked off of it and stuff like that. Like I've been rolling around in bar ditches my entire career, and all the rest of them where I've ranked, they're all still shiny, look brand new. And so I say that tongue in cheek. I don't like the politics of it, and I was kind of convinced, if you will, because my last badge up there, one says retired and the other one says assistant chief deputy. And then I was asked to run for sheriff because of the problems in the previous administration. And then I was almost kind of bullied into it. I felt good because it's good to be wanted, and I like people encouraging me, but I already had another job. I had a successful business, and I didn't need the job. I'd already retired. I was eligible to retire when I left. And so when I do have to deal with the politicians, I always like to tell them the difference between me and you, X, I won't tell you which politicians I'm talking to. I go, the difference between me and you is I don't need the job, you do. I have no boss but the elected, the people who elect elected officials. So my boss is the public. So when the public starts wearing me out about something, then I need to address it. But some guy in a suit doesn't scare me. Some politician, some blowhard doesn't scare me. I could care less. I can go back to doing what I was doing and be happy. The only way we get this job done is it has to be legal, the will of the people, and we're doing the right thing at the right time for the right reason. As long as you can pass those litmus tests, you'll be fine. And that's all we do. I don't expect anything from my folks that I wouldn't do myself. I have a great staff, and they know that I don't know everything. I like the, Bush 43 aspect. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, and if you think you are, you better leave. And so I surround myself with smart people, and I trust them, and they trust me. And so a day doesn't go by where one of my chiefs will go, hey man, you might be missing the mark on this. You're 90% there. How about this part? And I go, yeah, you're right. Yeah, it sounds good. Make it happen. So it's kind of like the Colin Powell aspect, I like the input. I like the argument. I like that we can all talk and cuss it up and then leave here and go have lunch. But when the decision's made, you will carry it out as if it was your own. Prison system, that's a long way. That's a very far end to a conversation that hasn't even started yet. And what I mean by that, we're specifically talking about SB 4. And SB 4 was, for whatever reason, passed. I don't know why. Because we have gotten no direction, no legislation, no action plan how to handle it. So basically, SB 4 tells me if I stop somebody who I believe to be Hispanic driving a car for a busted taillight, and they can't present a Texas driver's license or some type of identification, and they don't speak English, I should jail them for not being a U.S. citizen. And I don't know how I passed that litmus test. I have no direction. Or the other example I cite is how have I now stopped that exact same person, put them in my jail, and then their lawyer shows up and goes, yeah, he's been here 80 years. He just doesn't speak English. Here's his driver's license, and how many zeros you're going to put on this check for false imprisonment because you violated his civil rights. So now it's a federal lawsuit. This is not a state lawsuit, but you got him in here on a state law. The other litmus test is someone comes to a port of entry, a legal port of entry, Sheriff Guerra's port of entry, and says, hi, I'm from Mexico. I'm seeking asylum because I have an uncle who's a cartel member. He tried to recruit me. I said no, so now there's a hit out on my life. because the standard for immigration, or excuse me, not immigration, but for asylum is very low. The standard is very, very easy to meet. You just got to say, hey, I'm in the PTA and the president doesn't like me and I'm scared. And then you laugh, but I'm serious. The standard is very low. So you get in and that immigration person goes, okay, well, welcome to America. Here's your hearing date. See you in 6 years. 5 years into your 6 years, you haven't come back to your hearing yet because you haven't met your date yet. And I stop you, busted taillight on the interstate. Is that person required to have that paperwork on them 5 years later? Are they here legally or are they here illegally? What is their status? So we have nothing. We've been given no test, no litmus test, no nothing, no instructions. And that's why the ACLU, it's already gone to the Supreme Court. That I don't know of a county. I've already consulted with my county attorney. He says if it happens, don't do it. And I said, okay, I can control my employees, but I can't control the other 38 agencies that drop off at my jail at 2 o'clock in the morning. And he goes, when that happens, you set them on the bench, you call me, I'll come over and sign the declination of prosecution and we let it go. So that's even the courts haven't even been given any direction. So that's kind of where we stand now. So to say that someone's going to end up in prison, that's so far down the road. And to be quite honest with you, I don't see it happening. It's going to sound cliche, and everybody says it's going to sound cliche, and I want you to believe me. And it does. It sounds cliche, and I want you to believe me. But what I could get away with 30 years ago, you can't get away with today. And I don't mean like I committed crimes or treated people poorly. If I wrote a ticket, then the judge automatically believed that I was an honest person. Well, I can't get away with that anymore. I could back then because that was a societal norm. And so now you could have knocked me over with a feather when I'm reading a report, because we have a very, very robust mental health program here, and the way we treat victims with mental illness and our crisis intervention team and our mobile outreach and the way we treat people in jail and our programs, it's all changed. And we used to be, saw drunk, arrested, same, throw away the key, Having said that, when I'm reading a report where we says, we were sent to a disturbance in progress and we contacted Mr. Smith, and Mr. Smith was, disheveled and agitated and obviously experiencing some type of mental crisis, and we tried to help him. He wouldn't allow us to talk to him, so we attempted to detain him for officer safety, and he struck Deputy so-and-so in the head, and we struggled on the ground. We were able to detain Mr. Smith, and then I read further in the report and says, then we determined by talking to family members that Mr. Smith suffers from schizophrenia, and realized that his assault was not generated towards the officer, only merely what we stood for, and he was in crisis. So we unhandcuffed him and put him in services that he needed. What did I just read? That is what a deputy out of the academy today is telling me. Where 30 years ago, there would have been 3 trips to the ER, he would have been buried under the jail, probably a life sentence for aggravated assault on 3 police officers, and would have stayed in a mental institution for the rest of his life. That's, I used this term yesterday, unfortunately, with one of my chiefs. I said, this profession kills people who can't change. And if you don't have the ability to embrace change and know it's coming. And I think that our officers have embraced change, and my chiefs know that the generation X and Z and Y, or whoever we're dealing with, because I can't keep up with them anymore. I think that they know that we may be old curmudgeons now. We're that guy, but we'll listen to you, and we understand that you're a product of your environment, the way you brought up. You're a social media person. I'm not a real big social media person, but I'm forced to exist in a social media environment, so I've got to conform. So here's me. Hey, I'm the boss. I'm not going to conform to all y'all. Got to conform to me, and that's not the case. And so I think we all realize that we have to change, and our, I get reports all the time. I haven't seen one. My staff was telling me about some that we got that wrote into the newspaper about how refreshing it is that they're just nice now. They're just nice to be around. Back in the day, the previous administration that were still trying to fix a lot of those problems, the other cops wouldn't even hang out with us because we were such a train wreck. And I don't say we, the department, we've cleansed those folks and sent them packing and brought in the people that we want, that know the job. They're here to win it. They're in it to win it. Right thing, right time, for right reason. You live by that mantra, you always do well. I have one guy that I've come up through the ranks with, and he's brilliant. He won't tell you that, but he's just naturally smart and common sense. And he has this innate ability to look 5 years ahead for what he's thinking about right now. And I'll go, I think about doing this. They'll go, well, 2 years, this is going to happen. In 3 years, this is going to happen. In 5 years, you're going to be in a federal lawsuit. Dang, you're right, And so now we're trying to train our folks, you know, the thing you want to do right now, but now you have to sit back and go, what will my decision do? How will it affect me? How will it affect the community? And how will it affect the relationship, the reputation of my agency? We have a bunch of our patches around the agency on these big placards, and it basically says, the patch on your shirt says who hired you, the name on your shirt says who raised you. Don't go out there and disrespect either one of them. Don't ever do anything to, you know, shame your mama, you know. And so sometimes, you know, all these old mama laws are, you know, if people just live by them, we'd probably be a better place, you know.